They told you The Art of War was a book for soldiers and generals. That's a lie. Sun Tzu didn't just write about war. He wrote about people, about fear, about power, and he wrote in a way that still cuts through our world today. Think about it. You fight your co-workers for position. You fight rivals in the market. You fight yourself just to keep from breaking. Everywhere you turn, life is war. Machiavelli once said, "Men are ruled by two things, fear and hope." But centuries earlier, Sun Tzu went further. To control others, you must master perception theirs and your own. So the real question is this: are you the one pulling the strings, or just another pawn being moved across the board? In this video, we won't read Sun Tzu like a dry textbook. We'll tear open his 21 principles with a cold blade through the stories of Alexander, Genghis Khan, Napoleon, Churchill, and through the battles you fight every day. At work, in love, in society. 21 principles, 21 weapons. The only choice is, will you use them to defend yourself or to rule others? And that's why Sun Tzu's first principle strikes like a warning carved in stone. Know yourself, know others, and in 100 battles, you will never be in danger. It sounds simple, but simplicity has buried countless arrogant men. To know yourself isn't just to list your strengths. It's to stare at your weaknesses, your limits, the raw truths most people avoid. The one who deludes himself about his own power is already defeated before the first blow. But self-knowledge alone isn't enough. You must know others. You must dissect your opponent as if dissecting a corpse. Know where they are strong and where they are fragile. Know when they are quick to anger and when they endure. Most of all, know what they fear: losing power, honor, or the illusion of peace. Once you see that, you hold the reins. History proves it. Hannibal crushed the Romans at Cannae because he understood their rigid habits. Yet in the end, Hannibal fell not to Rome's genius, but to his own blind spot. Carthage lacked the strength for a long war. Hanshin, of the Han dynasty, mastered this art. He lured enemies into traps, struck where they least expected, but he also knew himself, an outsider never fully trusted by Emperor Liu Bang. In the end, Hanshin didn't die in battle. He died because he misjudged the heart of his own ruler. And today, this principle hasn't aged a day. Want to win at work? First dissect yourself what skills are weak, what strengths are underused. Then study your rivals. What do they lack? What do they crave? Want to win in love? Know your own needs, but also map the mind of the other. The one blind to themselves becomes a fool. The one blind to others becomes their pawn. So let me ask you, do you really know yourself? Do you truly know the people around you, or are you walking blind into their game? Know yourself to avoid self-destruction. Know others to seize control. Do both, and every battle is already yours. Even if you know yourself and know others, Sun Tzu revealed a colder truth. The greatest victory is the one where no battle is fought. He wrote, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. The highest general wins with strategy, not with blood." History shows this again and again. During the Cold War, the US and the Soviet Union armed themselves, threatened each other, raced endlessly. But no nuclear bomb was ever dropped. The US won not with battlefields, but by draining its rival into collapse. That is victory without fighting, an invisible surrender, yet absolute. Does that sound like weakness? No, it's the peak of power. Winning with blood only proves you were stronger in a single moment. Winning without spilling blood, that's psychological domination, a surrender from the inside out. In business, you could crush rivals with lawsuits, pricing wars, and brute force. But if you can make them bow their heads, or even walk away from the game voluntarily, you haven't just won. You've erased their will to resist. In life, what does winning without fighting look like? It's holding calm when others try to provoke you. It's letting your enemy destroy their own reputation while you stay silent. It's shaping the situation so your rival has only one option: retreat. Machiavelli echoed this centuries later. The best rulers make others fear them without using violence. But Sun Tzu had already understood it long before. Real power isn't in the number of fights you've survived. It's in making others realize before the fight begins that resistance is useless. So I ask you, have you ever won an argument by saying nothing? Have you ever watched someone destroy themselves while you didn't lift a finger? Isn't that the sweetest victory of all? True war is not fire and blood. True war is when the enemy looks at you and knows fighting is pointless. If winning without fighting is the highest form of power, then to reach that level, you must know how to seize opportunities before they vanish. Sun Tzu wrote, "Opportunities multiply as they are seized." This isn't just advice. It's a brutal law of the game. Action creates more action. Hesitation creates defeat. Take Alexander the Great. He was only 20 when he inherited a fragile kingdom surrounded by enemies. But instead of hesitating, he moved relentlessly. Each victory opened the door to another. From Greece to Persia, and then into India, every bold step created a chain of new possibilities. That willingness to act turned him into one of the greatest conquerors in history. Now compare that to Hannibal. After his stunning victory at Cannae, he had the chance to march on Rome itself, but he hesitated. That golden moment slipped away, and Rome never gave him another chance. Life works the same way. The hesitant always watch opportunities slip through their fingers. The bold, even if imperfect, always unlock more doors. You want to rise in your career? Don't wait until you're ready. Taking on challenges before you feel prepared is what makes you grow. You want to launch a business, pursue a dream, or start a relationship? Remember this: opportunity is like a river. If you don't jump in, it flows away and never returns. Sun Tzu didn't glorify recklessness. He glorified decisiveness. The reckless act without thought. The decisive prepare, recognize the moment, and when it flashes before them, they strike without hesitation. Ask yourself, how many times have you missed out because you waited for the perfect moment? And if opportunity only knocks once in a lifetime, will you be ready to seize it immediately? Because in the game of power, opportunity doesn't knock twice, and once you seize it, the next one will come looking for you. Opportunity only belongs to those who know how to conceal their moves. That's when Sun Tzu strikes with his next blade. All warfare is based on deception. It sounds ruthless, doesn't it? But think about it in war. Isn't the fool who shows all his cards already defeated? And in life, isn't the person who speaks every thought, exposes every ambition, the one who hands over their throat to be gripped? History proves it. When King Helu of Wu tasked Sun Tzu with training his soldiers, he didn't just teach them how to wield swords. He taught them to pretend chaos to hide order, pretend weakness to hide strength. With this, Wu's armies crushed enemies many times their size. Genghis Khan was another master of deception. He often feigned retreat, only to circle back and ambush when his enemies dropped their guard. That show of weakness wasn't cowardice, it was a deadly trap. In politics, Machiavelli put it coldly: a ruler doesn't need to be good, but he must appear good. Reality itself has never been as important as the perception of reality. So what does this mean in everyday life? In negotiation, make them think you need less than you really do. In action, disguise your true target with a false move. And above all, never let anyone read your full strategy. Let me ask you, do you dare admit that most of your power lies in what others don't know about you? Or do you still believe complete honesty is a safe path? Because in the game of power, the one who reveals the truth too soon is the one who destroys themselves. And when deception is unleashed, chaos inevitably follows. But to Sun Tzu, chaos was never a disaster. It was a gold mine. He wrote, "In the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity." Look at Napoleon. He rose from the ashes of a Europe drenched in blood after the French Revolution. Society was unstable, power fragile, rulers weak. And just when everyone else was paralyzed by fear, Napoleon seized the opening and turned himself into an emperor. Without chaos, there would have been no Napoleon. Or take China during the Warring States period. While other states wasted their strength in endless wars, Qin chose a different path: reform, consolidation, and patience. When the others were exhausted, Qin struck and unified the realm. Chaos didn't destroy them. It became the launchpad for the first empire. So, what about our modern lives? When markets crash, the panicked sell everything, but the patient buy and build fortunes. When a company is in crisis, the calm strategist rises to leadership. When society is shaken, the flexible few carve out paths the fearful would never dare to walk. The real question is, do you see chaos as a pit or as a door? Do you freeze at the sight of disorder, or do you smile knowing that inside the storm lies your chance? The difference between losers and winners isn't whether chaos comes because it always comes. The difference is in how you respond. In chaos, the blind will fall, but the clear-sighted will rise to rule. Even when chaos opens the door to opportunity, Sun Tzu gave a colder warning. Not every battle is worth fighting. He wrote, "He who knows when to fight, and when not to fight, will be victorious." This is the art of conserving strength, of not wasting blood, time, or energy on meaningless fights. Take Han Xin, the brilliant strategist of early Han. He often pretended to retreat, deliberately losing small skirmishes just to lure enemies into a trap he had already prepared. And when the perfect moment came, he struck with full force and crushed them. Had Han Xin stubbornly tried to win every minor fight, he would have been drained long before the decisive moment. Now look at Napoleon in Russia, the tragic opposite. Blinded by victory, he believed every battle must be fought and won. But Russia wasn't a normal battlefield. It was a frozen trap. The greatest army in Europe was destroyed not by swords, but by winter itself. Sometimes, not fighting is the only way to keep your power intact. And in life today, this principle is as brutal as ever. Do you really need to win every argument? Or are you just burning yourself out for the sake of ego? Do you really have to chase every opportunity? Or have you seen people collapse because they tried to grab everything only to end up with nothing? The wise choose their battles. The foolish swing their sword at everything and die tired. In work, you must sometimes abandon small projects to focus on the one that truly matters. In love, there are relationships that must be released, because holding on only drains you. In society, sometimes silence is sharper than any counterattack because it forces your enemy to exhaust themselves. To know when to strike and when to withdraw, this is not weakness. This is the power of someone who intends not just to win, but to last. Once you know which battles to fight, the next step is simple but deadly. Appear where your enemy never expects you. Sun Tzu wrote, "Appear at points which the enemy must hasten to defend. March swiftly to places where they are unprepared." True power doesn't just come from being strong, it comes from being unpredictable. Think of Hannibal, the Carthaginian general. Rome believed no army could cross the Alps, yet Hannibal led war elephants over the mountains, descending into Italy like a nightmare. Can you imagine the terror in Rome? An empire that thought itself invincible, trembling at the sight of the impossible, or Zhuge Liang of the Three Kingdoms. Time and again, he feigned weakness, leaving cities undefended or hiding ambushes where no one expected. Each time, stronger armies had to retreat, beaten not by force, but by surprise. This principle is no less brutal in modern life. In business, if you walk only on paths already paved by competitors, you will always be behind. But seize an untouched niche, an idea no one prepared for, and you dominate before they can react. At work, when you accept a challenge no one else dares to touch, you catch rivals off guard. In society, when the crowd follows the same tired path, your difference becomes your weapon. So let me ask you, are you living like an open book, easy for anyone to read, or are you wise enough to make yourself an enigma, forcing others to waste their strength, trying to guess your next move? Because in the game of power, the most dangerous opponent is not the strongest one, but the one no one can predict. Even if you master the art of surprise, Sun Tzu warned of a colder truth. The sharpest sword, if left in salt and water, will surely rust. Power is never permanent. It must be sharpened, maintained, and protected. An elite army, if it stops training, quickly falls apart. A brilliant leader, if he rests on past victories, will soon be replaced. A sharp mind, if it stops learning, grows dull. History offers bitter lessons. The Ming dynasty once commanded the world's most powerful navy under Admiral Zheng. He massive ships that crossed oceans, while Europe was still fumbling in the dark. Yet when the court neglected the seas and abandoned naval power, that fleet rotted away, and China lost its chance to dominate the oceans. From a blazing sword, they allowed it to rust before the world's eyes. Or consider Nazi Germany in World War II. Blitzkrieg once terrified all of Europe, but Hitler overused it, refusing to let his armies rest or retrain. The steel blade dulled quickly, and the Soviets, through endurance, shattered it. And what about our own lives? A relationship left untended will collapse. A skill left unused will fade. A body left uncared for will decay with time. Ask yourself, are you letting your sword rust day by day without even realizing it? Are you clinging to yesterday's victories while tomorrow slips away? Sun Tzu didn't say this to make you paranoid, but to remind you, victory is not a final destination. It is a state you must constantly maintain. Yesterday's glory will not protect you today. Only relentless discipline keeps your sword sharp. Even if you keep your sword sharp, Sun Tzu delivered a cold warning. Do not repeat the tactics that brought you one victory. Let your methods change with the endless circumstances. It sounds counterintuitive because human nature clings to formulas of success. Once a strategy wins, we believe it can win again. But repetition makes you predictable, and the predictable are always the defeated. Look at Napoleon. He conquered Europe with lightning marches and thunderous strikes. But when he applied the same formula in Russia, it turned into a deadly trap. His once victorious method became the very reason for his downfall. In the East, Cao Cao, the cunning warlord, made the same mistake. After repeatedly succeeding with luring enemies into ambushes, he grew overconfident. At the Battle of Red Cliffs, Zhuge Liang and Zhou Yu saw through his pattern, setting his fleet ablaze on the Yangtze. One repeated tactic cost him everything. In life, this principle cuts just as deep. You may succeed through a skill, but if you never evolve, someone else will use that same skill to surpass you. You may win in business with one strategy, but if you cling to it, the market will shift and leave you behind. Even in relationships, if you rely on the same old ways, what was once comforting becomes stale, and what's stale soon collapses. So ask yourself, are you repeating the same old move so often that you've become an open book? Or are you flexible enough to make your next step impossible to predict? Sun Tzu reminds us, yesterday's victory is no guarantee of tomorrow's success. Only those willing to break patterns, reinvent themselves, and become a new enigma each time achieve lasting dominance. The one who clings to old formulas will die with them. The one who turns themselves into a mystery will rule. Real power cannot be sustained by orders alone. Sun Tzu wrote, "A leader leads by action, not by coercion." A general can shout commands on the battlefield, but if he doesn't dare step forward himself, will his soldiers truly follow? Can empty words maintain discipline, or is it action that inspires absolute trust? Alexander the Great understood this better than anyone. When he led his army across the desert into Persia, his men were dying of thirst. Someone brought him a flask of water. Alexander looked at it, then poured it into the sand before their eyes. He was as thirsty as they were, and he endured as they did. Just one small act, but enough to make thousands of men ready to die for him. What do you think bound them to him more, his orders, or the image of a king who shared their pain? By contrast, Nero of Rome believed fear alone could maintain power. Yet his cruelty and distance turned his people and court into traitors. He could issue decrees, but did anyone truly follow him? In modern life, this principle cuts just as deep. A CEO cannot sit behind a desk and expect loyalty. He must be willing to step into the trenches when crisis strikes. A man or woman in a family cannot rule with words alone. They must lead by example. Trust is never born from force. It is born when others see you act first. So ask yourself, would you rather be the one who shouts and is ignored, or the one who steps forward and leaves behind a legacy? Even when you lead by action, Sun Tzu revealed a subtler layer of power, controlling perception. He wrote, Offer them what they expect. When their minds are occupied, you will strike where no one imagines. This is the art of guiding attention. When an enemy believes they've figured you out, they relax. And that's exactly when the real strike lands. Zhuge Liang mastered this. When Sima Yi besieged his city, he left the gates wide open and calmly played his lute. Convinced it was an ambush, Sima Yi retreated. He didn't see reality, he saw what he wanted to see. And that illusion destroyed his confidence. In modern times, marketing works the same way. Customers are shown beauty, stories, and images they crave. While their minds are busy with the surface, the company executes its real strategy beneath. In politics, Churchill used deception campaigns to convince Hitler that the Allies would land at Calais instead of Normandy. German forces gathered in the wrong place, and D-Day sealed the outcome of the war. In everyday life, this principle is just as ruthless. You let others believe you're weak, predictable, harmless, and when they lower their guard, you strike. So ask yourself, are you living inside someone else's illusion, or are you the one crafting the mask they can't see through? Once you've mastered the art of controlling perception, Sun Tzu reminds us of a colder truth. Think carefully, weigh everything before you act. In his eyes, recklessness is a form of suicide. Victory does not belong to the fastest hand, but to the one who waits for the right moment to strike. Qin Shi Huang understood this. He didn't rush into conquest when his state was weak. First, he empowered Shang Yang to reform laws, strengthen discipline, and build the economy. Only when Qin had accumulated enough strength did he launch his wars of unification. That wasn't slowness, it was ruthless preparation. By contrast, Xiang Yu, the so-called overlord of Chu, was full of strength and courage, but ruled by emotion. He rushed into unnecessary battles, drained his power, lost his position, and finally killed himself by the Wu River. Strength without restraint is self-destruction. Today, the principle is just as sharp. A hasty entrepreneur can burn through capital on an unripe idea. A reckless leader can drag an entire team into a dead end. Even in daily life, one impulsive decision can scar you for years. Sun Tzu wasn't teaching hesitation. He was teaching preparation. To think carefully is to sharpen your blade, so when the moment comes, you strike clean, precise, and final. Ask yourself, are you living like Xiang Yu, letting impulse lead you to ruin? Or like Qin Shi Huang, patient enough to wait, and then strike with one decisive blow? Sun Tzu wrote, "The skilled commander makes the enemy come to him, never allows himself to be drawn where the enemy decides." Victory isn't just about strength, it's about choosing the battlefield. The Battle of Red Cliffs is the perfect proof. Cao Cao commanded the strongest army of the three kingdoms. Yet Zhou Yu and Zhuge Liang forced him to fight on the Yangtze River, his weakest ground. Cao Cao, a master of land battles, was clumsy at naval warfare. In one night, his massive fleet burned to ashes. He didn't lose because he was weak, he lost because he let others choose the arena. In modern times, General Norman Schwarzkopf applied the same principle in the Gulf War. Instead of attacking Iraq's strongest defenses head-on, he used deception to mislead them, then struck from an unexpected direction. He didn't let the enemy decide the fight, he forced them to play by his rules. In life, the lesson is equally ruthless. In negotiation, if you let the other side set the rules, you start from weakness. In work, if you let others define your worth, you've already surrendered the field. In relationships, if you let others control your emotions, you've walked straight into their trap. So ask yourself, whose battlefield are you fighting on? Theirs or yours? Sun Tzu knew the truth. The strongest isn't the best fighter. The strongest is the one who makes the whole world fight by his rules. Sun Tzu wrote, "The essence lies in making sure your enemy can never grasp your true intentions. Ambiguity is your armor. Secrecy is your blade. When the enemy cannot predict your next move, they are forced to react instead of act. And the moment they react, they've already lost control. Who holds the reins then? You do." Genghis Khan mastered this principle. His Mongol armies spread false rumors, staged retreats, created illusions of overwhelming numbers. The enemy never knew what was real and what was bait. That fog of uncertainty shattered armies many times their size. In World War II, the Allies staged Operation Fortitude. Inflatable tanks, fake radio transmissions, entire phantom divisions. Hitler believed the invasion would come at Calais. By the time Normandy erupted, the truth was revealed. But it was too late. In everyday life, the lesson remains the same. Talk too much, and you hand others the weapon to destroy you. Reveal your full plan, and you become an open book. But when you remain silent, when you let others keep guessing, they will stumble into their own mistakes. So ask yourself, do people see who you truly are, or only the mask you allow them to see? Sun Tzu never praised showmanship. He taught that the most dangerous thing isn't the power you actually hold, it's the power others believe you hold. Sun Tzu wrote, "He who wishes to fight must first calculate the cost." Victory is never free. It is always bought with something: money, supplies, reputation, spirit, or scars that never heal. Japan in World War II is a brutal reminder. Pearl Harbor gave them a fleeting moment of glory, but they forgot the price. The awakening of a sleeping America. That strike didn't just cost them a battle, it dragged their entire empire into ruin. George Washington, on the other hand, chose differently. During the War of Independence, he refused to fight battles that weren't worth the cost. He would rather retreat and preserve his army than win a meaningless victory and lose everything. That cold calculation kept his forces alive long enough to win the war. And in life, the lesson cuts just as deep. A toxic relationship, the cost is your time and peace. A reckless business decision, the cost is your career. One moment of anger, the cost may be your freedom, even your life. So ask yourself, are you truly ready to pay the price for the fight you're about to enter? Sun Tzu never told you not to fight. He taught that you should fight only when the reward outweighs the cost. Otherwise, even victory is nothing but failure dressed in glory. Sun Tzu wrote, "When strong, appear weak. When weak, appear strong." This is not just a tactic of war, it's the art of manipulating perception. An army with immense strength that hides its power lures the enemy into underestimating it. And underestimation always leads to traps. On the other hand, a broken army that projects false confidence can plant fear and hesitation in the hearts of its enemies. Genghis Khan mastered this law. His forces would pretend to flee in chaos, abandoning the battlefield. The enemy, thinking victory was theirs, would rush forward in celebration only to be swallowed by an ambush. The weakness they saw was nothing but a mask. In China, Liu Bang also used this principle. While Xiang Yu boasted of his overwhelming strength, Liu Bang concealed his power, patiently waiting. In the end, it was the weaker man who survived. And in modern life, the rule remains brutal and true. In business, if you reveal your full strength, your competitors will double their defenses. But if they think you are weak, they'll drop their guard, and that's when you strike. In relationships, sometimes appearing less needy than you actually are makes others fear losing you more. Ask yourself, how much of what people believe about you is real, and how much is the illusion you've allowed them to see? He who controls perception controls the entire game. Even if you've mastered the art of appearing weak when strong and strong when weak, Sun Tzu reminds us of a cold truth. Every victory comes at a price. There is no such thing as free glory. Every triumph is paid for in blood, in time, in energy, and sometimes in pieces of your own soul. Have you ever seen someone win without losing something precious in return? The Soviet Union in World War II is proof. They won at Stalingrad, one of the bloodiest battles in history, but that victory cost them over 1 million lives. Yes, it opened the road to Berlin, but an entire generation was buried under the rubble. Or take Hannibal, the brilliant general who crushed Rome at Cannae. His victory was so devastating that Rome had no choice but to seek revenge to the very end. That shining triumph planted the seed of Carthage's ultimate destruction. In everyday life, this lesson is everywhere. You can climb to the highest position, but the price may be your health, your family, or your peace of mind. You can win an argument, but the price might be a relationship shattered forever. You can achieve dazzling success, but the price may be loneliness and exhaustion. So the question is, Are you truly ready to pay for the victory you desire? Sun Tzu never denied victory, he demanded that we face its cost. The real winner is not the one standing over his enemies, but the one prepared to pay the price without collapsing when the bill comes due. And because every victory comes at a price, Sun Tzu pointed to the one factor that can reduce that cost: speed. He wrote, "Move fast, and you live. Move slow, and you die." In war, the slow are crushed before they can even react. The fast not only seize the advantage, they inject fear into the enemy's heart. Would you rather strike first or waste your life scrambling to defend? Alexander the Great understood this better than anyone. His armies could march dozens of miles in a single day, appearing where the enemy least expected. That speed kept the Persian Empire off balance, defeated before they could even gather their forces. He didn't just win with strength, he won because his enemies could never catch up. In modern times, Nazi Germany's blitzkrieg relied on this principle. Tanks and aircraft struck with lightning speed, tearing through defenses before the enemy could respond. Though Hitler eventually failed, those early victories remain a vivid lesson in Sun Tzu's words. In life, speed does not mean recklessness, it means readiness. When opportunity appears, you don't need another month to think about it. You've already prepared, and when the moment comes, you strike instantly. The hesitant watch opportunities slip away. The swift turn them into triumphs. In business, a product launched months earlier can capture an entire market. In leadership, a timely decision can change the course of a company. In relationships, a single timely act can save or destroy a bond forever. In the game of power, speed is not just an advantage. It is the line between life and death. Even when speed gives you the upper hand, Sun Tzu taught another cold truth: always give your enemy a way to retreat. It sounds contradictory. Why give your enemy a path to escape? But that is the highest form of control. When a man is cornered, he will fight to the last breath, and the price you pay for victory will be unbearable. Do you want to win by bleeding yourself dry, or win with minimal effort and absolute dominance? Xiang Yu, the hegemon king of Western Chu, made this fatal mistake. He cornered the Han forces, leaving them no escape. But instead of collapsing, they fought like wounded beasts. Xiang Yu lost his advantage and was ultimately destroyed. A desperate enemy is always 10 times more dangerous. The wise, however, know when to offer a golden bridge. Genghis Khan often allowed his enemies an escape route, and in doing so, their armies dissolved without a catastrophic battle. When the enemy sees a path to flee, they don't fight to the death, they just want to survive. And you, without spilling much blood, still claim victory. In life, this lesson is ruthless, but real. In negotiations, let the other side keep some dignity. If you corner them, they'll resist you forever. In business, don't push competition to the point where they become lifelong enemies. In personal relationships, giving someone a graceful exit is not weakness, it is control. Sun Tzu understood. A desperate enemy is the most dangerous kind, but an enemy with a way out is nothing more than a shadow in retreat. True power does not lie in destroying everything. It lies in making others leave the board willingly. Because the enemy always needs an escape route, Sun Tzu added a crucial rule. Position is like drawing the bow. Decision is like releasing the arrow. What does this mean? It means you must spend time preparing, building strength, and creating momentum. But when the decisive moment arrives, you must unleash your full force instantly. Look at the Normandy landings in 1944. The Allies spent years preparing, gathering forces, studying the weather, running deception campaigns to mislead the Nazis. All of it led to one day, 1 hour, 1 moment. And when the arrow was released, it pierced through Hitler's iron wall. Years of preparation. A strike in seconds that is Sun Tzu's wisdom. In Chinese history, Liu Bang mastered this principle. He endured humiliation, appeared weak, and quietly built his strength. But when the opportunity came, he struck a single, decisive blow that turned the tide, rising from a commoner to the founding emperor of the Han dynasty. In modern life, this is the fusion of patience and speed. You may spend years studying, training, and building your skills. But when the moment arrives, if you hesitate, everything you prepared becomes meaningless. Are you willing to release the arrow when the bow is fully drawn? On the other hand, if you rush to act without preparation, you will fall in your very first attempt. Sun Tzu taught, preparation creates momentum. Action unleashes force. One cannot exist without the other. The wise man is like a drawn bow, silent but filled with deadly energy. And when the string is released, nothing can stop it. Because a plan without action is only a dream. And action without preparation is suicide. And finally, after all preparation, deception, speed, and strategy have been pushed to their limits, Sun Tzu closes with the ultimate principle. The supreme warrior is the one who imposes his will upon the enemy and never lets the enemy impose theirs upon him. This is the highest form of power, controlling the rules of the game. Because if you are only reacting to someone else's moves, you are already losing. The true victor does not follow the situation, he creates the situation. Julius Caesar proved this. When he crossed the Rubicon, he didn't just start a civil war. He sent a message. From this moment on, he would define the rules of Rome. Caesar refused to let the Senate dictate his fate. He imposed his will, and an empire bowed. In World War II, Winston Churchill lived by this same principle. When Britain was cornered, he refused to let Hitler define peace as surrender. Instead, Churchill imposed his own will with words of steel. We shall never surrender. His resolve turned an entire nation into an unbreakable wall. In everyday life, this lesson is just as ruthless. If you let others decide your emotions, you'll live in permanent anxiety. If you let an opponent force you to play by their rules, you've already lost before the game begins. But if you define the rules, control the pace, and impose your will, everyone else becomes a piece on your board. Sun Tzu never taught us to chase fairness. He taught us to bend the balance. And that is real power, not just winning one battle, but making the whole world move according to your rhythm. In this game, the winner is not the last man standing. It is the one who has never once had to follow anyone else's rules. Do you want to be the one moving the pieces, or just a pawn being moved? We've just walked through 21 ruthless principles from Sun Tzu, not dead words from Tu. 500 years ago, but the operating system of power still running your life today. Look around you. At work, you fight to stay ahead. In love, you fight to hold control. In society, you fight just to keep your freedom. Where there are people, there is war. History already proved it. Alexander conquered with speed. Genghis Khan ruled with deception. Napoleon lost by repeating old tricks. Churchill survived by pure will. Different men, different ages, but one truth. Power belongs to those who control perception, timing, and the battlefield itself. So now, you face a choice. 1. Stay a pawn, forever moved by others. 2. Become the player who sets the rules, who bends the world to his will. Drop a comment. Which of Sun Tzu's principles do you believe could change your life right now? Your answer isn't just a comment, it's your first move in this invisible war. And remember, this was only the beginning. In the next videos, we'll reveal how rulers from Sun Tzu to Machiavelli, from Genghis to modern leaders, still play the same game. Because in the art of war, the real victor isn't the last man standing. It's the one who never once had to kneel. See you in the next video.